Welcome to episode 12 of the Animorphs read-along broadcast, where we are talking about book 11, The Forgotten. Jake starts having these visions of himself in the jungle. He thinks maybe he's going crazy, or that these are hallucinations, or that, like, weird nightmares, so he doesn't really tell anyone about it. So the latest Yerk news is that a bug fighter has actually crashed into a grocery store. So they came up with this crazy plan to steal the bug fighter and maybe land it somewhere really public, like the White House lawn. And while they're in flight, kind of out of control, somewhere in the Middle East, they run into the Blade ship, and the Blade ship, bug fighter, shoot like dragons on full power at each other, and next thing they know, they're in the jungle. So according to Axe, they have created a Sario rip, a small tear or pocket in the space-time continuum. They find out that they've gone back about 6 hours and they're in the Amazon rainforest, and if they don't find a way to get back to where they're supposed to be in time, then the universe will destroy both them and the other thems that are still in the original timeline. Time travel, am I right? In the jungle, things are crazy, and then they get crazier, and eventually Visser 3 captures them all and ends up killing Jake. When Jake dies, his consciousness snaps back to his other body, and he's able to prevent them from going on the mission in the first place and prevent any of this from ever happening. I think this is a really cool version of time travel, and it makes sense to me. I had to sort of sit with it for a few minutes and be like, okay, why did this happen? How come Jake's the only one who remembers? Blah, blah, blah. But eventually I was like, no, yeah, all the rules seem to apply, and it makes sense to me. The events of this book, in some way you could be like, oh, they don't even matter, it's all throwaway because they never happened. But I think for Jake, who is the one who remembers, they're crucial. Jake's position as leader is no longer unofficial or halfway. He is the leader, and the rest of the group looks to him in tight situations to make quick decisions. And throughout this book, he almost gets everyone killed a couple times. He makes a lot of bad calls, and he's so furious with himself. He just feels like this is proof that he's not meant for this and that someone else should be in charge. There's the extremely sweet conversation between Cassie and Jake, where she says, "You're the same, you and Polo. He's you and you're him, the leaders. He took a risk putting down his spear. We might have killed him and his people. There was no way he could know if it was the right thing to do. He just made the best decision he could. That's all anyone can ask from a leader." And then, of course, they hold hands and snuggle because they're adorable. It's an important lesson for Jake to learn, because even though he's the best man for the job, he's gonna make mistakes, and he might end up getting his friends hurt or killed someday. I always really enjoy the glimpses into their everyday lives. And we get this sort of really cute, delightful square dancing scene. And then we also get the scene where Jake's dad has paid for pay-per-view to watch the big fight, and he and Tom both have to pretend like they really want to be there, even though they both have other things to do. And ironically, the same thing to do. And Jake sort of sadly wonders if the real Tom is in there and enjoying the game in spite of everything. Quote of the book goes to Axe whenever Jake says, "Did we go forward or back? Are we in the past or the future?" And Axe goes, "Yes, it's definitely one of those two choices." And he's serious. That's what I love about Axe. I feel like we get bits and pieces of Tobias' character development. There's nothing I love more in the world than grumpy, pouty Tobias, and we get a lot of that in this book. And there's a difference between Tobias being upset, because he has a lot of reasons to be upset, and then just being hashtag bird problems. But we can see Tobias, compared with the shy little kind of strange kid that he was at first, has become so much more confident, self-assured. He's not afraid to speak his opinion, but he's also getting increasingly frustrated with the limitations of his morph. And it's so interesting, because you would think he'd just be man, I really wish I was human, but it's almost he's more man, I really wish I could help more. The Animorphs in this war against the Yerks, it's Tobias' everything, and all he wants to do is to be a better member of the team. I'm guessing, based on the fact that he was shipped back and forth between uncles and aunts who didn't want him, that he's never felt like he had a place in the world, and he's found it now. I think that this book was ultimately just Applegate trying to be how could I get these kids to the rainforest? But it was a great decision, and I think it was really cool to get to experience the Amazon through these kids' eyes. Rachel's this is the Amazon that everyone wants to save, burn it down! But whenever they re-experience it again as the Jaguar, they're all like, okay, this is magnificent. So those are all my thoughts on Animorphs Book 11, The Forgotten. If you want to keep up with this read-along, subscribe to this channel or follow me on Twitter. The next book is Book 12, The Reaction, and I will be posting about it on Thursday. Heads up, we have another non-Animorph book coming up. We're going to read the Andalite Chronicles in between books 13 and 14. It technically took place at the very beginning of the story, but I didn't want to start it first, so we're reading it in publishing order.